My name is Olivia Bennett. I am 32 years old, and I'm from Seattle, Washington. What happened to me at 11 years old shaped every decision I made for the next 2 decades. But nothing, prepared me for the day a lawyer called and said, "There's something your mother never told you." Have you ever been told you weren't wanted at 11 years old? What would you do if your own mother packed your clothes in trash bags and said, "Don't come back"? Would you spend the next 21 years wondering what you did wrong? Or would you build a life so strong that her rejection couldn't break you? Now imagine this, 2 decades later, a lawyer contacts you, not to apologize, not to reconnect, but to reveal a secret your mother buried the day she kicked you out. What was she hiding? Why wait 21 years? And why did the truth shake her entire world? Stay with me. I was 11 years old the night my childhood ended. Not 13, not 16, 11, old enough to understand tone, young enough to still believe my mom was my safest place. It started over something small. At least I thought it was small. I forgot to bring home a permission slip for a school trip. That was it. No drugs, no stealing, no screaming match. Just a folded piece of paper I left in my desk. But when she found out, something in her snapped. Her voice changed first. You know that tone. The one that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up? She wasn't yelling at first. She was cold, controlled, calm in a way that felt dangerous. "You're ungrateful," she said. I remember standing there in the kitchen, still wearing my backpack. I kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'll fix it. I'll ask my teacher tomorrow." But she wasn't listening. She walked past me, opened the hallway closet, pulled out 2 black trash bags. At 11, you don't process what's happening right away. You think it's a threat, a scare tactic, a go to your room and think about what you've done moment. But she walked into my bedroom, and she started packing, not folding, not organizing, packing, clothes off hangers, pajamas from drawers. My favorite sweater my grandma bought me, everything went into those trash bags like I didn't deserve a suitcase. I remember my hands shaking. "Mom, what are you doing?" She didn't look at me. "If you can't follow simple rules, you don't need to stay here." I laughed, a nervous laugh, because surely she didn't mean. She tied the first trash bag tight. That's when it hit me. This wasn't punishment, this was removal. I started crying. Not loud at first, just confusion. I kept asking where I was supposed to go. She shrugged. Figure it out. Figure it out. At 11. She dragged the bags to the front door, opened it. The night air rushed in. It was colder than I expected. The porch light flickered like it didn't want to witness this. I stepped outside because I thought she just needed space. I thought maybe if I stood there long enough, she'd calm down. She placed the bags next to me. And then she said the sentence that rewired my brain forever. "Don't come back." The door closed, not slammed, closed, slow, final, controlled. And just like that, I wasn't a daughter anymore. I stood there for what felt like hours, watching the light under the door, waiting for it to open, waiting for her to realize this had gone too far. It never did. No neighbor came outside. No dramatic scene. No rescue music playing in the background. Just a kid on a porch with 2 trash bags and mascara running down her face. That night, I learned something adults don't understand about children. We don't stop loving you when you hurt us. We start wondering what we did to deserve it. I replayed every moment in my head. Was I too loud, too needy, too expensive? Did she regret having me? At 11 years old, I decided it must be my fault. Because the alternative, that a mother could discard her child on purpose, was too big for my brain to carry. I eventually walked to a neighbor's house. They let me call my aunt. I stayed there for a while, but something inside me shifted permanently that night. I stopped expecting protection. I stopped assuming love was permanent, and I started observing. Because here's the thing that didn't make sense. She wasn't just angry. She was scared. And at 11 years old, I didn't understand why. But 21 years later, when that lawyer called, I finally did. And trust me, it was never about a permission slip. When you get kicked out at 11, people assume someone steps in and fixes it. They don't. You just become temporary. I moved from my aunt's house to a family friend's spare room, then to a couch, then to another couch. I learned very quickly that gratitude had to be louder than my pain. I washed dishes without being asked. I babysat for free. I stayed invisible, because invisible kids don't get sent away. At school, I became the quiet, responsible one. Teachers praised me for being mature. They didn't know maturity wasn't a personality trait, it was survival. Every time attendance sheets were passed out for parent signature, my stomach twisted. Every time someone asked, "What does your mom do?" I rehearsed answers that didn't invite follow-up questions, because the truth was humiliating. My mother wasn't sick. She wasn't struggling financially. She didn't lose custody. She just didn't want me. And that does something to a kid. You start overachieving, hoping excellence will make you lovable. I studied like my life depended on it because it did. Scholarships became my only escape route. I worked part-time at 14. By 16, I had 2 jobs, not because I wanted spending money. Because I refused to ever stand on another porch again. Holidays were the hardest. While other kids complained about family dinners, I learned to smile through borrowed traditions. I'd watch mothers fix their daughter's hair before pictures and pretend it didn't sting. Birthdays came and went without a single call from her. No happy 12th. No, are you safe? No, I miss you. Silence can be louder than screaming. And here's what really messed with my head. She lived only 30 minutes away. 30 minutes. Close enough to visit, close enough to check in, close enough to care. But she didn't. For years, I convinced myself there had to be a reason. Maybe I reminded her of someone. Maybe I was an accident she couldn't forgive. Maybe I'd done something unforgivable and didn't remember it. Children blame themselves. It's easier than accepting abandonment. By 18, I left for college on a full scholarship. I remember sitting in my dorm room thinking, she'll call now, she'll be proud. She didn't. No congratulatory message. No curiosity about my major. It was like I'd never existed. And that's when something inside me hardened. Not bitterness, not revenge, clarity. If I was going to survive, I had to stop waiting for closure that wasn't coming. So I built a life that didn't require her approval. I graduated with honors. I landed a stable job. I bought my own apartment before 30. Outwardly, I looked successful. But there was always this quiet question in the background of my life. Why? Why throw away a child and never look back? Why erase me completely? Why act like I was a mistake that needed deleting? And the more stable my life became, the stranger her silence felt. Because normal anger fades, normal pride softens. Normal mothers get curious, but her silence felt intentional, strategic, like distance wasn't about punishment, it was about protection. I just didn't know who she was protecting. Until 21 years later, when a lawyer used the word documentation. And suddenly, all those years of silence didn't feel random anymore. They felt planned. It was a Tuesday, nothing dramatic. No storm, no eerie music, just a normal workday. I was in the middle of answering emails when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I let those go to voicemail. Spam calls don't pay my bills. But something made me pick up. Hello, a man's voice, calm, professional, controlled. Hi, is this Olivia Bennett? Yes, my name is Daniel Mercer. I'm an attorney calling regarding your mother. My body went cold, not sad, not emotional, cold. For 21 years she had been silent. No birthday cards, no emergencies, no attempts to reconnect. And now suddenly, a lawyer. I'm sorry, I said carefully. What about her? There was a pause, papers shifting. She recently initiated a legal review involving certain documents, and your name appears repeatedly. Repeatedly. That word hit different. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I don't have a relationship with her, I said quickly. If this is about medical decisions or debt, I'm not involved. Another pause. This isn't about debt, he replied, and it's not medical. Silence stretched between us, then he said it. There are sealed documents filed 21 years ago. They were structured to remain undisclosed until specific conditions were met. Those conditions were triggered last week. Sealed, filed, undisclosed. 21 years ago, that's when she kicked me out. My mouth went dry. What kind of documents? I whispered. I can't discuss full details over the phone, he said, still calm, still measured. But they involve guardianship, estate allocations, and a formal declaration that was never presented to you. Guardianship, estate allocations, declaration. At 11 years old, I didn't even know what those words meant. And yet, apparently, paperwork about my life had been filed behind my back. You're telling me, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, that when I was kicked out, there were legal documents involved. Yes, not hesitation, not uncertainty. Yes. The room suddenly felt smaller, like the air had thinned. For 2 decades, I believed my mother acted out of anger, impulse, emotion, but legal documents aren't emotional. They're planned, calculated. Intentional. What kind of declaration? I pressed, another pause. A declaration stating that you were to have no knowledge of specific financial holdings and biological information until reaching the age of 32. Biological information. That phrase didn't just confuse me, it unsettled me. Biological as in medical history. I'd prefer to discuss that in person, he replied. I believe you deserve to see everything yourself. Deserve. That word almost made me laugh. I deserved answers at 11. Now I was being handed fragments like a delayed package. When can we meet? I asked. Tomorrow, my office will forward the address. The call ended, and I just sat there, staring at my reflection in my computer screen. For 21 years, I thought I was discarded because I was unwanted. But unwanted children don't get sealed legal documents. Unwanted children don't have declarations filed about them. Unwanted children aren't hidden behind paperwork. And suddenly, every memory from that night felt different. The trash bags, the calm tone, the controlled door closing. It wasn't rage. It was execution. She didn't kick me out because she lost control. She kicked me out because she needed control. And tomorrow, I was finally going to find out what she was so afraid I'd discover. And why she needed me gone before I was old enough to understand it. I barely slept the night before meeting the lawyer. Not because I was scared. Because for the first time in 21 years, the silence was about to break. When I walked into Daniel Mercer's office, everything felt sterile. Neutral walls, neatly stacked files, no emotion in the room. He gestured for me to sit. On the table in front of him was a thick envelope, my name typed across it, filed 21 years ago. He didn't rush. He didn't dramatize it. He simply slid the envelope toward me and said, "You should read the declaration first." My hands were steady. That surprised me. I expected shaking, tears, panic. But instead, I felt something else. Readiness. I opened it. The first page was dated 3 weeks before the night I was kicked out. 3 weeks, meaning this wasn't spontaneous. It was prepared. The document outlined a private trust, a significant one, property, investments, assets placed under legal protection in my name. My heart started pounding. I don't understand, I said quietly. She never had that kind of money. Daniel nodded slowly. She didn't. He handed me another document, a paternity declaration, DNA confirmation. Filed under court seal. My eyes scanned the name listed under biological father. It wasn't the man who raised me. It wasn't the man I thought abandoned us when I was little. It was someone else. Someone powerful, someone publicly respected, someone married. My stomach dropped. You're telling me, I whispered, that she kicked me out because your existence complicated things, he finished carefully. The room felt heavy. For 21 years, I believed I was disposable. But I wasn't disposable. I was inconvenient. The trust had been established by my biological father quietly, privately, legally, with one condition. My mother had to relinquish day-to-day custody before I turned 12. Why? Because if anyone discovered the truth at the time, if it became public, his career, his marriage, his reputation would have collapsed. So instead of protecting me, they removed me. My mother didn't kick me out because I was a burden. She signed documents agreeing to it, in exchange for financial security for herself. She was compensated, Daniel said gently, compensated. Like I was a transaction, like I was a liability that needed relocating. I flipped through more pages, emails, legal memos, structured language that disguised something ugly. They called it restructuring guardianship. They called it minimizing exposure. They called it asset protection. Not once did they call it what it was, abandonment. I felt anger rising, but it wasn't explosive, it was sharp, focused. She could have told me, I said. Daniel didn't respond, because we both knew the answer. If she told me the truth at 11, I would have asked questions. If I asked questions, people would have looked deeper. If people looked deeper, secrets would have surfaced too early. So she erased me instead. The final document in the envelope explained the delay. The trust would fully transfer to me at 32, along with disclosure rights. Which meant last week, when I turned 32, the silence legally expired. For 2 decades, she wasn't ignoring me. She was waiting for the contract to end. Waiting for the secret to age into safety. Waiting for me to grow old enough to handle the truth she buried the night she placed my clothes in trash bags. And suddenly, that night made sense. The calm tone, the controlled movements, the lack of hesitation. She wasn't angry, she was executing an agreement. And the girl standing on that porch, she wasn't unwanted, she was evidence. And now, at 32, the evidence had just been handed back its voice. I didn't call her right away. That's what the old version of me would have done, the 11-year-old. The one who still wanted answers, the one who would have cried and asked, "Why didn't you love me enough?" But I wasn't 11 anymore. I was 32, educated, stable, legally protected. And for the first time in my life, I had leverage. Daniel explained that the trust had matured. The funds were fully transferable. The properties were now legally mine. My biological father's legal obligation had expired. The non-disclosure agreements tied to my mother had also expired, which meant she no longer controlled the narrative. I did. And here's the twist she didn't see coming. The trust wasn't small. It wasn't college tuition and a savings bond. It was generational, investments, equity stakes. Real estate holdings that had quietly appreciated for 2 decades. While I was sleeping on couches, money in my name was multiplying. While I was working 2 jobs at 16, assets connected to my DNA were compounding. And she knew the entire time. That's why she never called. That's why she never checked in. That's why her silence was so perfect. Because silence was part of the deal, but deals expire. I requested a meeting, not at her house, not somewhere private, at Daniel's office, neutral ground. When she walked in, she looked older, but not fragile, not remorseful, controlled. That same controlled energy from the night she closed the door on me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. 21 years of silence sitting between us like a third person. "You met with him," she said first, not a question. "Yes," she inhaled slowly, measuring her words. "I did what I had to do." There it was, not "I'm sorry," not "I was wrong." I did what I had to do. For who? I asked calmly. She didn't answer, because we both knew, for money, for protection. For reputation, not for me. Daniel slid a document across the table. "Olivia now has full discretionary control," he explained, "including disclosure rights." That's when I saw it. For the first time since I'd walked in fear, real fear, because disclosure rights meant I could speak. Publicly, legally, freely. "You wouldn't," she said quietly. And for the first time in my life, I smiled without needing her approval. "I don't need to," I replied. That confused her, so I continued. "You spent 21 years protecting a secret. You sacrificed a child to maintain control, but here's what you miscalculated." I leaned forward slightly. "You taught me how to survive without you." I wasn't there for revenge. I wasn't there to scream or destroy reputations. I was there to make one thing clear. I was never the weak one. She underestimated something crucial the night she tied those trash bags. When you abandon someone at 11, you don't make them fragile. You make them independent. And independent people don't beg. They decide. I chose not to expose anything. Not because I was protecting her, but because I didn't need to burn down her world to build mine. The power shift wasn't in revenge. It was in restraint. She walked out of that office knowing something she had avoided for 21 years. I knew the truth. I had the assets, I had the voice, and I didn't need her anymore. The girl on the porch waited for the door to open. The woman in that office, she closed it herself. And this time, I didn't leave in trash bags, I left owning everything. If this story hit you in the chest, if you've ever been abandoned, overlooked, or made to feel like you were the problem, I need you to hear this. Sometimes rejection isn't about your worth. It's about someone else protecting a secret. If you stayed until the end, drop "I survived" in the comments. I read every single one. And tell me this, if you were in my position, would you expose the truth? Or would you walk away like I did? Make sure you subscribe because the next story. It proves something even scarier. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who panic when you finally stop needing them. Fire.